All right. So now we are going to start with our reading comprehension session. Okay. So we were talking about this particular bit. Yes, that what is happening, what kind of passages are coming in. So I told you already, I said that whatever exams you pick up, apart from GRE as well, all of them happen to have three very important fields from which you are going to find your essays. So that is what we have to look at first. Our passages can be driven from science, they can be driven from humanities, and they can be driven from social sciences or business. So, why a bifurcation between humanities and social sciences? Very simple. Like Sayantan had said this thing, right? That there was a particular text that was pertaining to philosophy. So that would fall under the category of humanities. Social sciences or business, on the other hand, will be any particular passage that is going to deal with a number of things, especially dealing with, let's say, socio-cultural aspects, psychosocial things. They can be like you can see it's written there research based. The focus happens to be on the society. It could be a piece on eco criticism, it could be about business, it could be about economies. So all of that falls under social sciences. Okay, so in humanities, you will have everything else. You'll have literature, you'll have pop culture, you will have passages that are talking about on focusing on certain observations about societies. Um, and then science would be completely about, again, even geography based things, biology based things, physics based things. Geography, though it falls into social sciences, of course, but at times we do have pieces which can have an intersection of, let's say, science and geography. So all that falls in the category of science, right? Now, essentially, what happens is this is where our thing happens. Just like you had said right now, that the passage type that you chose, that decision ended up making all the difference, right? So when it comes to your particular examination, you have to be very careful and you have to know what is your strong point, what is not your strong point. So in every session, I say this thing that you have to do some internal thinking as well. There are certain things that you will have to do, right? So this is again one thing that you have to do based on your own personal experience. First and foremost, figure out RCs altogether as a field happen to be one thing, as a particular section of the exam is one thing, but within that section as well, what particular topics or what particular sections do you feel that you're comfortable with? That is very important. Okay, because each of these will have their own unique characteristics. So here comes in the strategy. And the very first thing that happens is choosing your passage type. So what are you comfortable with? Wherein you are able to find speedy answers and you also know for a fact that yes, you are going to do good. Of course, we practice different types of the passages. That is what the preparation time is for, right? But then what kind of a passage are you comfortable with? Based on that, your understanding and tackling of the section will also become easier. Yes. So now when we talk about science passages, so what all would fall under the category of science passages? The characteristics are already stated here. They are data driven, they are objective driven, they are technical. So what all is going to fall in this category? You can either mention the subject or you can let me know um, some examples if you've solved something.
Say something is given on the, let's say that there is the thinking of uh, like fiscal deficit or
Fiscal
debt.
deficit would fall under the category of social sciences.
Okay, like science is like maybe some uh, on artificial intelligence, how artificial
Correct.
intelligence may
Hmm.
be, how artificial intelligence may be reducing, I mean, how is increasing agricultural output, something like that.
Okay, yes, nice. So essentially, what are we talking about? Whenever we talk about science section means anything related to biology, chemistry, physics, astronomy, astronomical events, technology, medicine. These are the five, six common types of passages that come in GRE. And apart from that, in other exams as well, when we talk about science, if you have practiced any previous passages and all, you will see when it comes to science, remember this thing: biology, chemistry, physics, right? Astronomy, technology, medicine. These are the seven, eight types that you'll find that, okay, questions are being asked from this. When it comes to GRE particularly, so in GRE, physics, biology, um, technology, and medical sciences, of course, become very important. They take precedence. You'll find a number of passages based on these subjects, right? When we talk about humanities, so now humanities, again, the texts happen to be interpretive, subjective, analytical. So here, humanities is very different in nature from science. So another thing that we are observing is it's not just about a section that, okay, this is the reading comprehension section, and so I have to solve the questions. Another thing that is happening here is that what is the subject around which my passage is, because that heavily determines the kind of questions that I'll be getting. Based on the kind of questions, we are going to choose what strategy we should follow so that we are able to solve more answers and get them correct. That is very important, right? So now when we talk about humanities, you can see I've written that they are interpretive and analytical. So what kind of questions would you find in for a humanities passage? Yes, guys.
Subjective, I can tell, but interpretive and analytical is not correct.
Okay.
I mean,
So very simple. A very simple example I can give you people is if you solved any RCs. Whenever we are talking about the author's intent,
yes.
yes, yes, whenever we are talking about, let's say, a particular expression is highlighted and then they are asking you to interpret it, that what does this expression mean in this particular passage?
Those are tough.
Yes, all of this falls in the category of interpretive, subjective, and analytical uh, questions. Because here you have to do an analysis, your focus has to be on the interpretation, right? Next comes in social sciences or business. So again, usually topics related to social sciences and business, market, economics, what is happening. These passages are usually very balanced. Yes, again, a lot of illustrations are given, examples are given, possibly case studies are also given. Yes, hence they are research based. At times, they are also societal focus. There is a societal focus in the sense they might go on to uh, talk about, let's say, a particular policy has been applied and what were the repercussions of that policy uh, application on a particular area. So, this sort of a thing is going to have uh, this particular tone. And what are the possible subjects that will fall in this category?
Maybe case studies on sustainability,
Right?
environmental.
Climate change.
Climate change, very good. Yes, Kesha?
मैम मोस्टली सोशल साइंस में तो अभी जैसे कैट में भी पिछली बार आया था एक, मैं उसका पैसेज थोड़ा भूल रहा हूँ। वो थोड़ा सा वैसे था, मतलब बिजनेस का ही एक वो केस स्टडी दे रखी थी एक बिजनेस से
Right,
रिलेटेड।
right.
वो केस
So,
स्टडी प्रॉपर पूरा पैसेज दे दिया था उसने।
so what will fall? So, social sciences and business passages, they cover psychology, sociology, yes, economics, political science, education. Okay, so there is a lot of data that is given, a particular interpretation of that data is given, and then you focus on the societal implications of that particular thing. Okay, so these are the three possible passage types that you find, and these are the most common ones when it comes to GRE. Now, let's talk about the science passages. So, supposedly, now this is something that, again, like I said, you have to first figure out which subjects are your strong points. Yes, are you comfortable with science? Are you comfortable with humanities? So, when we were talking about humanities, so again, we are talking about literature, philosophy, art, music. We are talking about ethics, religion, let's say cultural studies, all of this falls in the category of humanities. And then we have science. Sorry, not science, social, right? So first, figure out which of these categories is your strong point and which of these happens to be your weak point. Accordingly, start with your preparation. That is the first thing. Secondly, if you know that a particular area happens to be your forte, practice it more so that the chances of your answers being accurate are more, because we need more number of correct answers. Especially when I'm talking about GRE, because GRE happens to be automated. So there, if your answer goes wrong, the more difficult question you're able to get right, the higher your scores are. In other exams, that is not the case. We have a fixed uh, pointer associated with that particular question. But then again, we do not want any negative markings. We only want positive marking. So we should not go wrong in our answers. So the ultimate idea behind any exam is don't make many mistakes. Rather, focus on maybe solving lesser questions, but then make sure that those questions go right. So you first figure out which type of subject is your forte, and okay, what can I do now? Now we are going to decode subject by subject. A lot changes when your passage topic is changed. Your approach has to change. We feel a very typical way to go about RCs is that, okay, yes, the RC is given, I have to look at the questions and I have to solve them. Based on the subjects or the topic that is given, the approach further changes. So let's talk about the science passages. Now, what are the science passages doing? So we have already discussed what are the topics. What is the structure of the passage? So the structure happens to be very simple. There is a problem that will be given, then evidences will be given, so a lot of examples, and then a conclusion is given. That is the structure of the passage. This is something that is very important. Every passage has its own structure. Yes, so here you can pick up these words and you can remember. When you look at your passage, establish what is the flow. Or you can cross check as well. For example, here I am saying that, okay, this is the possible structure for any passage that is going to deal with science, right? So now apply this whenever you're solving any scientific passage. Take a look at it, see if this structure is followed. There is a problem, there is an evidence, there is a conclusion. All right, so this will be the structure. Then what is the tone? Tone happens to be objective and data driven. So any science passage mostly is not going to have any interpretative question. You're not going to focus on what the uh, author is saying. Rather, the questions will be structured around what the data is conveying. Are you understanding the difference? Yes? So this is very important. Then, because we are talking about research findings, there are a lot of technical terms that are also given. But also keep in mind that these passages, everyone is attempting them. So while you might get confused, and this is specifically for all those who um, do fear scientific passages a little bit, or someone who has issues with data driven passages, and this applies for all the subjects that are there. So many people are appearing for the exam. So, of course, the examiners do not expect you to be well aware of everything. You might encounter a passage in your exam, there is a high possibility wherein something is just thrown in front of you, and that might be the first time you're reading about it. So, at that time, you of course need to be more aware. You have to use your discretion, choose your answers wisely, but then you do not need to really panic. Yes. When it comes to science, of course, there will be a lot of technical terms in that particular passage, but in no way any question is going to ask you that you have to explain or elaborate a particular concept. So even if you don't know, that's completely fine. Science passages usually will have very data driven questions. So even if you have to interpret something, it is definitely going to be any data that has been given or any particular illustration that has been explained. So maybe your questions are going to focus on what was the conclusion from that, right? So let's say you are let's just take a look at this example. Yes, so this is how let's say a typical uh, passage is going to start. Now, very quickly, who can guess what is the subject that this particular passage might belong to?
Molecular biology.
Correct. Very good. So now, what is happening here? A lot of technical jargon is thrown in front of us. There is cellular regeneration. Yes, we are talking about self-repair mechanisms. We have planarian flatworm. Now, this is a typical starting of a passage, of a science passage. Now you see what is happening. The very first line, yes, the very first line. Recent studies on cellular regeneration have revealed that certain organisms possess remarkable self-repair mechanisms. This is sort of launching your topic. Okay. So now you know we are going to talk about, it could be a problem, it could be a solution, does not matter. Problem means your topic sentence. What is the topic that you're going to focus on? Then comes in your evidence. So now the Plerenian platform is being discussed, and then probably your passage is going to go forward and there will be a conclusion given about it. Yes? So, topic sentence. Now, what is this topic sentence that I'm continuously repeating? Reading comprehension passages are designed in a particular way. Whenever you open up a reading passage, take a good look at it. Let's say if there are 3 to 4 paragraphs in the passage. The first line or the first 2 lines, depending upon the length of the passage, of each and every paragraph, state the topic. Yes, the overall your passage is going to talk about one particular topic. However, even if you go paragraph wise within the passage, so we have this structure again repeating at a micro level. So the first sentence or the first 2 sentences, they will be clearly about the topic. So here, this is a very classic example of a topic sentence. The very first sentence you look at it, you know now what the subject is. So what the paragraph is going to focus on. Then the middle part comes in. So here we can see from the second sentence itself, the illustration or the evidences have begun. So we have the example that is being given to us, or something is going to be discussed. So the middle part is essentially all discussion, evidence, illustration, example, and then the final sentence of that paragraph. And mind here, I'm saying paragraph and not passage. So your paragraph also, the last sentence of your paragraph, each and every paragraph, sort of gives you a conclusion for that paragraph as to what were these 4 or 5 lines about, what did we discuss, what was the one takeaway point, and you move forward. So, irrespective of the subject that you are reading, irrespective of the passage that you are reading, take a good close look at your passage. And then your passage itself, we have the introduction, body, conclusion, structure. At a micro level, every paragraph is going to have this structure of a topic sentence, discussion, and a conclusion. So when you start looking at this sort of a structure and then you end up solving your questions, things become pretty easy. Very quickly, another example of a scientific passage could be, now let's see, here we have another sentence, quantum entanglement phenomena. So now we are talking about quantum entanglement. See the very first line. This is how your topic sentences are going to look like. The subject is already stated. You have it. So now you know what you have to do. Do you want to go ahead with it or not? Yes? Let's say this is another example of a topic sentence from a paragraph. Climate models incorporated. Now, this again, this is not the very start of a passage, mind you. Yes, these examples that I took, all of them are from different paragraphs from different passages. At different points, we find these paragraphs within the passage. So, this is how your topic sentences look like. Your paragraph starts with something, pay close attention to it. Right? So, this again was midway. So, now we are talking about climate models. Then, machine learning algorithms. Again, this was taken from the middle, one of the second or third paragraph within a passage. So, this is how your topic sentences look like. Very quickly, if you're able to map these, if you're able to locate these topic sentences, it becomes very easier for you to solve your question. So now are you understanding how the concept of a topic sentence works? Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Understood? Now I come to humanities. So humanities, like we were talking, literature, philosophy, art, culture, yes, pop culture, anything that is there falls under the category of humanities. Now here the structure changes. See, previous one was problem, evidence, conclusion. A very logical structure to follow. Now I come to theme, analysis, interpretation. A very different structure. So, based on the subject, your structure of the passage has again changed. We have theme, then we have an analysis of that theme, and then there is an interpretation by the author. They will have their own subjective interpretation interlaced and incorporated very clearly. Why? Because humanities passages that you are going to see are definitely going to be very passionate uh, interpretations of people, right? So, how is the tone? The tone happens to be interpretive and subjective. Here comes in the aspect of personal perspectives, critical analysis. So, what does all this mean? We are now looking at the question set, which is going to ask us three, four different things. One could be very directly, let's say, meaning of a phrase, interpretation of a particular line or a particular segment of your passage, questions dealing with the author's tone, what is the author's perception, what is the interpretation for a particular setup or a particular line, questions that remotely fall around the category of so and so illustration or the illustration of XYZ was given by the author in order to, and then you have to interpret why this particular example was given in the passage. Yes, you might have seen such type of questions. So, all of that comes under the category of humanities passages. So, when you start analyzing this first, ये सबसे पहले analysis करो. What is happening in my case? Am I able to solve the structure of, let's say, science passages? They are following a very different structure logically. Am I acing more in that? Am I acing more in humanities? So do not focus on the length of your passages. That is the biggest mistake we make. We see a longer passage, we directly come to the conclusion that, okay, this is going to take longer. Yes? Or we look at the questions. No. First and foremost, you decide what are your subjects that you're comfortable with. Your subjects decide the structure that you are comfortable with. Then this is the second point you have to check. Fine. Maybe I'm very good with literature. Okay. So, for example, I'm pursuing my PhD on Virginia Woolf. So today, if let's say I get a passage on Virginia Woolf's stream of consciousness technique, right? I should be able to solve it. But then it also depends. Am I comfortable with this particular structure? Am I able to get the interpretation right? Knowing or being enthusiastic about a topic is one thing. The second thing we have to ask ourselves is, do I comply by this particular structure and is this my strong point or not? If it's not, you move forward, right? And if you feel that no, this is my forte, I can do it, or if you feel that yes, I have to practice this bit, but yes, I'm getting better. So these are the question type. This will determine what are the questions that you are going to get. And this is something we completely forget when we are solving our RCs. Our focus is entirely on the passage question. Let me get it right and move forward. No. So choose your passages accordingly. Choose your battles wisely. That is the trick for RC. So understood now how humanities passages are going to be. Now, very quickly, can anybody give me an example of, for example, I give you an example of Virginia Woolf's stream of consciousness. Similarly, what other things can fall in a humanities passage?
Rene Descartes' dualism.
Yes, very good. Scartus, very good. Yes, Immanuel Kant. Kant's theories are also repeatedly asked. No matter which exam we pick up, let it be GRE, GMAT, CAT, Kant's categorical imperative theories, they are talked about. Yes, moral actions, consequences, um, let's say another very
एक लिटरेचर था, मैं मेरे को उसका नाम ठीक से प्रोनाउंस करना नहीं आता, एरिस्टोटल करके शायद से, उसकी बहुत आती है कैट
Aristotle.
में। हाँ, उसकी
Aristotle.
बहुत आती है, मतलब कैट में भी आते हैं उसके
Yes.
पैसेजेस।
Aristotle was a Greek philosopher and teacher. Yes.
बेसिकली
Aristotle.
हमें एओन पढ़ने को बोला था जब मैं लास्ट टाइम कर रहा था, तो एओन के एसेज वगैरह मैं करता था, तो उसमें उसके बहुत है, मतलब तो वो पढ़े थे मैंने, तो उसका नाम आता रहता।
Yes, very good. Um, Renaissance is another very important thing. Art history, because art history is again very important. So when we talk about art history, we are talking about the Renaissance. We are talking about Baroque art. There are also passages on absurdism, very common. Yes. So when it comes to GRE particularly, in GRE, the top candidates happen to be, let's say, philosophy, art history, cultural studies. This same thing can be applied to CAT as well. Yes. So these are the three sections that become very important. Okay. Then, um, now before we move towards strategic reading, yes, very quickly, these are the two main principal things. When we talk about social sciences and business passages, of course, I'm not particularly dwelling into it because what happens is now social science passages have a hybrid structure. Yes. So social sciences passages are going to have a mix of both of them. It depends upon the subject of that particular passage. What structure is it going to follow? At times they will follow theme analysis interpretation. At times they are going to follow problem, evidence, conclusion, based on what is the type of passage that is being given. Okay. So for example, let's say you have a passage that is, let's say, dealing with behavioral economics, right? So if there is a passage that is talking about behavioral economics, which subject is going to fall into?
Social science.
Yes, social science, of course. But then within social science, what is the cross section?
Economics.
Economics and
Psychology.
Psychology.
correct. Yes. So what is happening now? Social sciences will always transgress either towards humanities or towards science. Yes, because social sciences happens to be a mixture of these two. Okay, let's say a passage is talking about social media platforms. Yes. Now, social media platforms is definitely going to deal with science. We are talking about tech. But then now here comes in the interpretive part. Because now that might talk about communication patterns, it might talk about habits that are forming, it might talk about if it has to talk about, let's say, social isolation because of it. So then we have a mix of psychology, tech, and then we are using it in our social sciences paragraphs. So there, either of the two structures can come in. Yes, so there is no definitive structure when it comes to social sciences. Based on the cross section of multiple subjects, you have to decide that, okay, do I have to appear for this one or not, or like how many questions can I get right or wrong? Yes. So ab ye to ho gaya, we are talking about the passage types, the subjects that are there. So now you can see what is happening. Multiple subjects are coming in together. So the very first step that you have to do when it comes to your RC analysis is take a look at the passage very quickly, segregate science, social science, humanities. Okay, fine. Let's say it's humanities or science or social science. Next thing, what is the structure that it's following? Am I comfortable with this structure? Quickly, you take a look at your questions. Taking a look at your questions tells you very clearly what type, like how many of these you're going to get right or wrong. So do not directly go on whim. What we end up doing is we look at the length, we start reading it if we feel comfortable, or we look at the questions, we feel yes, they are easy, or yes, this is something I want to go for, and we end up solving. This is exactly something we shouldn't be doing. We need to put in more thought. First, do all of this very quickly. Within a minute, you will know what is the approach that you have to take for your particular passage and how many questions can you get right or wrong.
Ma'am, with regards to GRE,
Hmm.
means can we just check, like in CAT, we can check what is the next passage, what is the next passage. GRE, the system.
No, internal scheming does not happen
So
question
means
wise.
like if there is a, let's say there is a passage on philosophy,
Hmm.
I would not like to attempt that. So
Yeah, you can skip the question.
okay.
That is a thing that is given. Then of course you can revisit, but then you can skip the question and you can move forward.
Once I skip the question,
Hmm.
so that would be there, right?
That,
That,
yeah, no, what happens is that will determine that, okay, yes, this is a particular difficulty level that you skipped. So then the software is going to automatically present the next question based on whatever you skipped and you didn't skip.
okay.
So your average scoring, because it's a cumulative score that is happening. So let's say there was a very difficult question in front of me. I found it to be very difficult. Yes, that's the reason I skipped. And you move forward to the next one. So now it knows, the system knows that, okay, this difficulty level probably was way too difficult. So the constraint in GRE is that you need to, like, if you know the answer for sure, if you know that, okay, yes, I can solve this, first attempt it, then move forward. If you skip it, a different question is going to be synthesized. There is a pool of questions that the GRE has. There are no fixed questions in GRE. Based on what you get right or what you get wrong, based on that, your next question is designed.
Just I means let it put me another way. Let's say I get a philosophical first RC of my exam is a philosophical one. Okay,
Yes,
that might be easy for me, might not be. But
right.
let's say I have an assumption that no, philosophy is not my forte, so I
Hmm,
just skipped. So the
right.
next means what are the chances that the next RC will be philosophy or anything other than that?
No, no, no. See, one thing that very clearly happens in GRE is that the questions are well shuffled. So even
Oh,
if we are talking about one particular section, you're not going to find a very strong repetition.
Okay.
Each passage is categorically very different from the other.
Okay.
They make sure that all of these topics that we just discussed, right, that as many topics can be covered. Yes, because there is a limitation. You can only get 4 RCs. So,
Oh,
so then of course they are not going to go on a random free, right? But then all the 4 5 passages that you get will have a very good variance.
okay. Thank you.
That is how it works. Okay.
Yes.
Now, now I come to our strategic reading. How do we practice this? How do we read a particular passage? So there are 3 ways to do it: skimming, close reading, hybrid. Yes. Now, majority of you have definitely know about skimming. So what is skimming? We are quickly um, doing a quick overview. We are jumping on the ideas. We are taking a look at the main ideas, the structure, and that's it. We solve the question and we move forward. Yes, this is something that we've done. Next thing happens to be close reading. Now, what is close reading? All those of you who are, you sit down with your passage, you start reading from the first line till the end. But then you're reading everything. But then still, skimming and close reading are more psychological rather than a physical act. Yes, you have, when we are talking about close reading, it does not simply interpret to reading each and every line. It also means that you are meanwhile also parallelly analyzing what is happening. So there is a constant analysis that is going on in your head. Okay, this is the structure. Now this illustration has come in. Okay, this is probably what this person wants to say. There are complex arguments. So you are able to understand the flow. So this is again something that you need to know. Are you skimming through your texts or are you doing close reading? And then we have the hybrid mode. What is this hybrid mode? You are going to use both of them to your advantage. How we do it, that is what we have to focus on. Okay. So now skimming versus close reading. How do we go about it? How do you decide what to do? The problem is our reading pattern or strategy is solely surrounding the idea how much time do I have, how many questions I have to do. No, very quickly you can understand what to do. Half of the problem is this also. You look at the questions and suddenly you're like, ma'am, I had to read it all. Or at times you go like, oh yes, I could see it, but for this question it was very difficult for me because here I had to understand. So what is happening? Even our questions are shuffled. You're not going to get a passage and probably get all the questions about um, data points or whatever. You might also end up getting you might also not get a passage wherein, okay, fine, the passage is there, but then all your questions are asking you to analyze something and go in depth. No, it's always a healthy balance. So let's say if a passage is giving you 4 questions, there is a probability that 2 might fall in one category, 2 can be solved by the other pattern. So what do we do? You can see it on the screen. I have written very concise pointers about this. When to close read versus when to skim. Yes. So, Anshita, can you read out when to close read?
Complex arguments, subtle distinction, specific details, interference questions, time permit through analysis.
All right. Thank you. That's it. So, also inference. Okay. So, complex arguments, subtle distinctions, very subtle questions wherein very minute differences are being asked. A specific detail, if a very specific illustration is being put into question and then a question is being asked. Inference based questions, if they are being asked. Uh, and then time permits through analysis. It means what? That just in case you see a question and in case you have extra time at your hands, you can very quickly go ahead and close read. just if you want to have that surety that, okay, the answer that I chose is correct. So this is the situation wherein you close read. Only in these situations do you close read. I'm not saying, remember, I'm not saying that you have to skip reading. You have to read. Reading the entire passage is not skimming. Skimming again means you skim through the passage, means you're very quickly reading it. Your speed is quick, but you're not skipping any details. Close reading, on the other hand, means you are taking your time with the passage and coming at a conclusion. There is a constant analysis and interpretation in your own head that is happening. So remember this thing, in both the cases, nobody is saying you to skip the passage. You have to read each and every line. Okay. However, the difference probably between skimming and close reading could be that you read the passage quickly twice. So you know that, okay, yes, I have 3 minutes. One, I'll very quickly read the passage once. Again, I'll go back, I'll read the passage twice. So in 3 minutes, I've read it twice in super fast speed. Probably this is a way of skimming through the passage. Now, when do you skim? Initial passage reading, of course. So initially, when you're trying to figure out that, okay, da 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 da, this is the passage, do I go for it, do I not? That is the initial skimming that we are doing. If there is a time constraint, you know that, okay, I cannot afford a lot of time, that is when you jump to skimming. Then, whenever you get any main idea, primary purpose, concept, theme based questions, all of them, they fall under the category of skimming questions. Yes, tonality based questions. For this, you do not need to read the passage again and again. What is the tonality of the passage? uh, is the author, let's say, pro or against something? uh, what is the primary purpose of this particular passage? Is this a good example or a bad example? These sort of questions will never require much of your time. They can be solved very speedily. You just need to skim through it. If you do not remember, or if you are someone who has problems in retaining the information, that is when, of course, I'll say that, okay, yes, very quickly just go through it and you can come back to your answer. And then very clear organizational pattern. So a very basic thing is, there will be passages that you might find easy. There will be passages they might be difficult because you are lost as to why this thing is given. So in a situation wherein you find that, yes, I am very clearly able to understand the organizational structure of this passage. I know the structure for sure, I know the purpose for sure, and this feels easy. Of course, that passage is going to be an easy read for you. That is also a situation wherein I will suggest you not to waste your time and sit with the question. Even inference based questions and specific detailed questions can be done very easily if you feel that you have understood the organizational pattern of the passage. So this is more of an internal assessment that you will have to do on the spot. Yes. So for example, let's say we have uh, uh, we have a science passage. Okay. So now let's say paragraph one is introducing me a new discovery, and we are, let's say, talking about brain repair. So paragraph one is introducing you the discovery. Paragraph two is telling you what is the previous research, it was successful or it was not successful. Paragraph three probably is telling you what are the implications for it, uh, how did it happen, what were the results. Conclusion is definitely telling you how this particular thing is going to probably benefit, or how it's going to change the medical field. Now, this is a very clear structure that I know. Something was introduced, illustration, research given, prior tests given, and a conclusion. It's a very clear organizational pattern. You do not need to waste more of your time reading through it or applying for like close reading in this. So from skimming itself here, you can figure out your answer because your passage is following a very clear organizational pattern. Now, when will you use close reading? If you're looking at a passage, now, of course, this was a scientific passage. The same structure can be there in a social science passage. Okay. So focus on the structure. That is why, or that is where structure becomes important. So structure was important even when we were determining the subjects. Different subject types have different structures. When we are choosing between skimming or close reading, do not do this thing that, okay, yes, I'm opening my passage and I'm reading every passage and there is no approach towards a type. A lot of time gets wasted in our exams simply because we lack this particular thing. If all of these things, all of these things we are able to, and right now, because we are discussing or like I'm explaining, that's why it is taking a lot of time. When you sit down with a passage, actually, it is not going to take that much time. And that is something that we are going to do in our upcoming sessions when we'll be solving RC passages in the class itself. So at that point of time, it will hardly take you a minute to make these decisions. Three subjects, okay. What is the intersection? Okay. What is the structure? Fine. Let me start with this passage. Now I have given you a particular time period. I'm telling you that, okay, you have to attempt this, let's say in 5 minutes or 10 minutes. You have a time foundation. What is the strategy you need to follow? So again, if you take just a minute or 30 seconds, synthesize all of this and then move forward, you'll be able to cover more ground. So take your time with this particular thing. Do not just mindlessly end up opening the passage and start reading it again and again or going back to and fro. Very quickly see these things. So now if I talk about close reading. So what is happening? We have to read the sentences carefully. We have to focus on logical connections. We are talking about transitions, and this is probably where author's assumptions are going to come in. There are shifts in perspective of tones, especially this particular method is very important when it comes to philosophy, particularly. Okay, art, literature, music, any passage that is going to deal with these. So I guess, for example, let's say if the passage is about stoicism, if the passage is talking about Marxism, we are talking about, let's say, Maeve Binchy and modern Irish literature, anything like that. So, what are we going to do? Now, here we need time. So, how do we do it? So, this is where we need to understand the structure ourselves. So, we come back to the structure again. And here we close read. So now when you're close reading, so skimming versus close reading, what will happen? In skimming, very quickly, you can, of course, not physically because GRE is again computer based, but then you can always very quickly make a mental note of all the key terms that are there when it comes to skimming. Okay. And then when it comes to close reading, here, more than the terms that are there or the keywords, you have to focus on the structure. So how is every passage getting tied? So let's say if a passage is talking about postmodern art, okay, a very common thing that can be asked. So let's say passage one starts off with how it is reflecting societal fragmentation. Yes, I had read one passage. I had solved one passage based on this topic. So let's say societal fragmentation. This happens to be the main claim. Okay, how is postmodern art reflecting all of this? Now, there is a whole story that is given, especially when it comes to art pieces or music pieces or philosophy. You see multiple things are happening at the same time, and you go like, okay, what do I do here? How do I approach this? So now focus on the examples that are being given. Are they, what is this initial evidence about? Then maybe possibly, let's say, some anecdote or some story from the artist's life is given. So what did he do? He rejected the traditional forms. So now this is again doing what? This is supporting the main argument that, okay, yes, postmodern art is talking about societal fragmentation. It is trying to bring out the vices of the society. So my next thing that is telling me about this whole episode of the artist, this is again relating to the main argument. So while your topic happens to be very subjective and metaphysical in nature, you have to bring in the science and create a very logical hierarchy of where this information is going or why is this particular bit even given to me. Why is this episode of the artist important, or why is this particular commentary on, let's say, a music piece is given? What are these adding? Okay, then probably, let's say, in these type of passages, even in history, you will find this, that critics' comments are given. Yes, so then we have this thing that, let's say, some critic is saying that, okay, this is an oversimplification. Then there is a counter argument that is given by another critic. So now, okay, there is a lot of to and fro happening. So there is an ongoing debate. Then we come to the final bit. Now, what is this final bit doing? This final passage is definitely going to tell you uh, as to what is the conclusion regarding art's social function. What is happening? What is the broader implication? So now close reading is going to do what? It is going to reveal you what is the argument structure. What are the competing perspectives? So this becomes very different from where you apply from where you apply skimming, because the skimming is happening wherein, okay, topic, pros, cons, conclusion. Here that is not happening. It's a complex argument. So this topic was given. Now, positive things are also given by the critics, negative things are also given by the critics. So counter arguments and multiple perspectives are coming together. We have competing perspectives. And then at last, a conclusion is given. And there we derive our conclusion that, okay, yes, this author has this particular tone for it. This is what he said. So now here is my final conclusion. So in these kind of passages, you will always have to do close reading. So manage your time accordingly. Do not um, go for every passage in the same way. Some passages can be very quickly skimmed and be done with. Some passages will have to be close read. So choose accordingly. Be very intelligent. And then to save it all, very simple, you have to choose what do you have to do. So we come in with our hybrid approach. Yes. Now I know close reading bhi hai, skimming bhi hai. When I have my passage, now this is a very heavy possibility that, of course, my subject is deciding what method should I apply for. I look at the strategic framework, what is the structure of the sentence, of the paragraph, uh, of the passage. Now I look at my questions. Now is where you determine, okay, what do I do? So focus on your question types. Yes, हम सबसे पहले क्या करते हैं? We go back, we look at our questions when we are practicing, then we see. Now, when we look at our question, what do we have to do? These are like some of the most common types of questions that you're going to find. So there is a main idea question, there is a very specific detail question, a specific illustration is pointed out, and then a particular specific question is asked. Then inference based question is there, and then tone question is there. These are the four most common question types that you find. Okay, so for main idea, I have already told you, rely on your initial skim. You know what is the passage talking about. Any main idea question, you should be very able to skim and figure out your answer. Now, specific detail question, here comes in the part. Now you've skimmed through your entire passage, let's say. Figure out where is this bit given. Only close read that particular part very clearly. Locate it, close read it. Here you will need to give time. These are the type of questions that will require time. Okay, it could be a very simple question. Probably you know the answer, your options are very easy. But then here I would suggest that you close read. Okay, inference based questions, again, close read. Now, close read relevant context. So what is that bit? Again, there is a sectional close reading that will follow. Tone question hai, just consider your overall structure, you will know the answer. So skimming can do the trick. And skimming again, you highlight keywords. So focus on any keyword that remotely tells you what is the tonality to be uh, adopted, or like what tone has the author taken up here. So this is the hybrid functionality that you have to work out. Not every question is just you look at the question, you go back to the passage. You look at the question, you go back to the passage. Do not do that to and fro. If you make these very logical segregations, it will become quicker. And then comes in a very human component that I'll say. When you sit down to personally practice, keep your reading comprehension practices timed. Let's say you're starting off with your personal study. You're sitting down with the passage. Yes, this is your very first passage. That's completely fine. Put on a timer. Let's say it's 30 minutes, no problem. 30 minutes, one passage, four questions. Reduce it to 20, reduce it to 10. Slowly end up reducing time. That is how you will slowly inculcate the idea of time management. Now, this is a very human component. This comes in with gradual practice. So while RC feels a very easy section that, okay, yes, the passage is in front of me, the question and the MCQs are in front of me, essentially it is an open book sort of a test. But do not treat it as such, because this practice of doing all of this computation within a minute, that comes in with practice. Because there is a lot of mix and match that is happening. And this is a very logically curated structure. Understood? Is it clear? So now we are talking about our key takeaways. What have we discussed so far? Very simple things. First, choose your passages strategically. So even when you're practicing, because right now you people are going to practice different sets of passages, sit down, do your internal assessment. If, let's say, you decide to do a mock practice entirely by yourself, the very first thing you should do is choose a variety. Take an assorted bundle, sit down with it. When it comes to your exam, choose your questions very clearly. Do not end up wasting a lot of time on a particular question, because time is key. RC also gets tricky because while the other sections are quicker, RC can take up more of your time, and this has happened with multiple students wherein they have told me this thing that, ma'am, I got so lost in reading the passage and getting my answer right that I did not focus on how much time was left. And maybe they wanted to complete it within 4 or 5 minutes. They ended up taking 10 minutes or 7, 8 minutes, and they did not realize. And 2 minutes in this particular exam severely count. Okay, so choose your passages very strategically. Now, this is another thing that I have written, that make a quick map. Yes, so what is a quick map? Whatever we just did, do a very quick mapping. That is the second step. Subject, structure, how do I approach this? Do I need to do this? Do I not need to do this? Of course, यहाँ पे the another thing that comes in is your human factor of what is your comfort with this particular subject. Yes. However, I will also say, do not let your human factor win, in the sense at times we get very underconfident or we fear a particular topic so much that we see that, okay, this is given. No, I'm not going to give it a try. Probably at times that might end up having very simple question types. So your overall conclusion of should I go for the passage should be on this mapping, which is a mix of subject, what is the structure, do I understand it, what is the question type, how much time do I have left, and so can I skim or can I close read, what is the balance that I have to strike, and how much time is left. So all of this mapping needs to happen within certain split seconds, and then you move forward. Next, focus on the question type. So now, as you people are starting with your practice for whatever RCs that you're going to solve, focus on the question types. What are your strong points? What are your weak points? Wherein you're lagging? First, start with that and then move forward. Do not take RCs very carelessly. Okay, it's okay, fine. That's it. We'll see. It's an RC. We do not practice RCs that seriously. This is a fact. But I would suggest that no, maybe take up one passage per day, but start solving it. Okay. And then the last point that is very important, and this is specifically when it comes to GRE, is to navigate efficiently. So now, what do I mean by navigating efficiently? For whoever is appearing for GRE, get acquainted with the system. So there are a number of websites on which you can register, you can understand the whole interface, and you can solve it. Start doing it. Do not be tech impaired. That is extremely important. So all those who are appearing for GRE, go online, acquainted with the interface, understand it, and then do it nicely. Okay, for others, navigate efficiently means very quickly. If you follow all of these three things to the book, definitely you will be able to navigate through multiple passages. How are they? How do I attend this entire section? Very nicely. So in both the ways, these are the major key takeaways that we need. All right. Is it clear to everyone?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Okay.